Yes, and we will now turn to the final Six Nations game of the weekend.
Yes.
Game on Sunday between Scotland and Ireland in Murrayfield. And this is a doozy, a massive game now again for both sides.
Yeah, as ever it is.
Thick and fast in the Six Nations. It's never small scale, and it feels like, for both of these teams, like a real...
must win in many ways.
Like a loss for either of these sides for me would be crushing for different reasons.
Yeah.
But anyway, we will get into the game from both teams' point of view. But it's going to be taking place this Sunday, as I say, March 14th, 3 o'clock local time in the afternoon, GMT. That's in Murrayfield, as I say, in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
And the referee is to be Roman Poit. Rewarded for his sensational TMO work with a test start as a referee, which we're listening to. Look, let's just hope he isn't a factor, as we always say.
Well, yes, no, indeed. One of these years, he won't be reffing any top tier games anymore, but it's not this year.
It will not be this year. Yes. So Poit is the man with the whistle, and let's hope on next week's show we don't have to make mention of him, apart from to say I didn't see Poit, so good on you. Good on you, Roman.
Hopefully, touch wood and all that.
As far as the weather's concerned, it's to be a wet week all week in Edinburgh.
It's been wet all this neck of the woods, and normally when you head up to Scotland, it's even wettier than most other areas.
Just a little worse, slightly a bit worse than the rest of these two rocks on which we sit. Chances are it's going to be a wet weather game, although, as it was with England as well, there's some scope for the worst of the weather to be passed.
So you'll just be a waterlogged pitch rather than rain coming down.
And the quality of the surface in Murrayfield, considering what it has to take, is pretty good.
Very well. That's true. So touch wood, it'll be a little drier than it has been, but the whole week leading up to it will probably be wet. So conditions will be affected by or playing conditions will be affected by a little bit of kind of moisture on the ball anyway, regardless, and it might even just be raining for the whole 80 minutes. We don't know just yet.
As far as the sort of background and colour around the match, just the Scots going into this game are in such a curious place. Obviously they had that match deferred. They're 3 weeks without playing. They enter the game 5th in the table, which is de facto bottom.
Despite being one of the 3 teams left in contention.
Yes, on account of how they've missed a game, obviously. But they're 1 from 2. They beat England. They have 5 points on the board. When this match kicks off, Wales will have 19 points. So
it's a long way back.
They'll be able to reach a maximum of 20 in their games against Ireland, Italy and France. So, I mean... it is a long way back for them. They're going to need a lot of things to go their way if they're going to win the competition.
But it starts with a win against Ireland.
It does,
as many things do for the Scots. They need a win. They need a win here for all kind, not just tournament credentials.
For me, it's like they won the Calcutta Cup. Okay, they lost the game against Wales. Chances are this tournament's got away from them, barring miracles in the run in. But a few backing up the big performance in Twickenham, the big Calcutta Cup win with back-to-back losses to Wales and Ireland would be an awful look, and it would just be
literally one step forward, 2 steps back.
Indeed, the margins are so small at this level, and they were so close to winning that game against Wales, and they have all of the bits and pieces that make up a very, very fine team.
Yes.
But there's only so long you feel like you can tread water in this competition, and that's kind of what they've been doing. It's been good performance, and then a loss, and then a good performance that is a loss, and then a bad performance that's a win, and it's just been so middling, and they seemed going into this tournament to have all of the tools to put it together. And like the Wales game, it went the way it did. Ferguson with a match costing error, and also the red zone offense with some match costing errors as well.
That's true.
And that's the way it goes. But in this game now, with Ireland, who have always had the Indian sign over Gregor Townsend. Since one game, I think in 2017, Gregor Townsend has just consistently lost to Ireland.
We
have the stats here.
Are you talking about his Scotland team? Even his Glasgow team did manage to do some damage in
they won
on occasion.
12,
they won a Pro 12 one of the years, but they've also went through some suffering at the hands of the Irish provinces as well. No, there's no doubt that Scotland owe Ireland significant pain over the head-to-head over the last few years. Even Ireland's patchy form, like Ireland's poor form, has been interspersed with sporadic random wins over Scotland, much to the chagrin.
Convincing wins. 2019, the one good performance of the year was the World Cup win over Scotland, and it was 27-3. Likewise last year, the Nations Cup.
The last game of 2020 for Ireland was a good win against Scotland.
Yeah, and then the games where we haven't blown them away with physicality have been characterised by just like baffling lack of clinicality from Scotland.
Errors from Scotland.
Stuart Hogg dropping the ball over the line.
There was that one game, was that 2018?
Grand Slam year,
Grand Slam year, where they carved Ireland open on 3 separate occasions and then just inexplicably
missed
turfed the last pass, and it's like there's 7 points on the floor 3 times in a row, and it's like it must be baffling to look at from a Scottish point of view, because it's certainly we seem like we're dodging bullets left, right, and centre looking at it from an Irish point of view, because like on paper and on form, Scotland are the better team going into this, and it's effectively like it's a home game for Scotland, which means they're more familiar with the conditions and all that. There's no crowd, so it's a bit more of a neutral game in that regard, but even still you're looking at the 2 squads and the form, and you're thinking that it really should be Scotland. If they both play their A game, Scotland will probably be the more clinical offence and probably win on that. But there's the intangible thing, it's just not played out that way.
They have one win in the last 10 against Ireland, dating all the way back to 2013. That one win came in 2017 in Murrayfield when they finally did.
They did.
Get
they
a bit of rhythm.
They caught Ireland cold at the beginning and punished them and got on top, and they set their rhythm that time. They did play their game, but that is an outlier.
Rare occasion.
It's an outlier as a result and a performance.
Most of what's happened is that they've lost the battle up front, and they've actually not been the more clinical team. Their fast backs have failed to find tries. They've found breaks but not tries. And Ireland in the red zone have bludgeoned Scotland and found tries at a more clinical rate in these games. And that's been the difference maker. So those are 2 big areas to look at from Scotland's point of view, and just overall righting this wrong that is their terrible record against Ireland feels like a massive priority, along with the fact that they've just heaped pressure on themselves with that narrow loss against Wales, because, as I say, backing up the win of the Calcutta Cup in Twickenham with back-to-back losses against Wales and Ireland is very, very, very frustrating. As far as another like treading water season for Scotland is just so frustrating, because they have the potential to compete and they haven't even competed. Like, it's so crazy. They have a great team, they play great rugby, they have the pieces, but they haven't yet had like a title run. They haven't actually been in contention. The best they had was that 5-game streak last year, but it came at the end of the tournament and into the Autumn Nations Cup. So they haven't had a proper run at a trophy in what feels like way too long. And they are better than that, and this is a good chance for them to get right back on the horse, exactly where they need to be, and have that, put that Wales game to bed. As the blip that it was.
It could be a season of exercising demons, because it was the first win in Twickenham in 40 years, was it? And they have some bones to pick. They have some demons to exercise as far as this Irish side and just these players, because it's not just Scotland, Ireland, it's Glasgow, Leinster, or Munster, Glasgow, or all of this. They're not winning those battles these days, and they need to try and fix that, because the Irish guys can be completely shorn of confidence, and they are in many ways, in terms of whether their offense is working against top level teams, and even in the circumstance when they're completely at sea and treading water and losing the games that they're in like a competitive games that they should win against top sides, or competitive games that they have to win against top sides, they'll lose. But all of that will be interspersed by a game against Scotland where they'll actually put it together and feel just innately confident that we'll beat Scotland, and that is the attitude, because the evidence is there.
They're about the only team, the only one of Ireland peers who Ireland do seem to have that big brother relationship
the bogey
with.
Team,
it's just a weird one.
If
England are terrified of playing the Scots have it over them. Ireland are terrified of playing England. The English have it over them, and Ireland have it over Scotland. It's so crazy.
If you were to stack up the games over the last 5 years that both Ireland and Scotland have played against England, you'd just be convinced that Scotland would hose Ireland easily. And then conversely, if you flip that and look at the games,
5 years is probably a little too much. I think Ireland had a couple of wins over England as well.
3 years. The last 3 years. And then conversely, if you look at the games that England have played against Scotland and the games that Ireland have played against Scotland, you'd be convinced that Ireland would just pump England easily. And no, that doesn't happen either. Because that maths doesn't make sense.
It's a funny old dynamic. It is. But Scotland, huge game for them to get back on the horse and stay in this competition, because they have the talent to do it, and there may not be a better chance for them to make the leap to the top tier of this competition, I guess. From Ireland's point of view, it's a bit more straightforward. It's just about winning matches and putting performances together.
Trying to salvage a winning record would make it a creditable season if they can sign off after the disappointing weeks 1 and 2 with big wins against Scotland and then England ideally next week as well. That's how Andy Farrell gets his ship back on course a little bit and kind of manages to cull some of the conversation and question marks about his future in the role, and they need some momentum, and it just comes from winning games. Ireland are at a level now where they just can't. Like if you're going to lose 3 games in the Six Nations, your job's going to be on the line, especially at this point in a World Cup cycle, and that's where they are. They're kind of backs to the wall with that.
Yeah, no, it feels must win for Andy Farrell, especially with England, who have had such an Indian sign over Ireland, as I say, coming next week. It feels like if they lose this, they'll be staring right down the barrel of 4 defeats in the Six Nations, which after a middling 2020. It would be a commitment for the IRFU to say we want this guy for the World Cup, and they would definitely have a decision to make. So it is pressure moments from Ireland's point of view. I also think it has to be a little bit about developing their game.
It does. That's
from the World Cup point of view. Like winning this game, like almost the way I would put it for me is that what I'm looking to see in these last 2 weeks from Ireland, it's not necessarily about how many tries they score or will they score tries. It's kind of about what kind of tries they score and how they're looking to create. That's kind of what I'm looking at. I'm like, what is Ireland's picture? Is Ireland's picture still bludgeoning red zone offences that are slow and physical and get the job done, and win penalties, win territory battle, get up into the 22 and bludgeon and then score, which is what they've done to Scotland with remarkable effect? Or is there going to be a bit more guile, a bit more creativity? Are we going to see like forwards in the wide channels? Are they going to expand their offensive playbook and look to score different kinds of tries?
Indeed. It's a vital thing, because I think one of the main issues that Ireland have, obviously the main issue they have, is underperforming in quarterfinals in World Cups. That's the main thing that all Irish rugby fans and all Irish players have in the back of their mind that needs to be remedied. And the facts are, like, the World Cup comes around once every 4 years. It happens at the tail end of summer. It's sunny conditions always on World Cup quarterfinal day. It's very, very rare that you have a rainy quarterfinal fixture. It is.
New Zealand 2011.
Maybe New Zealand in 2011, but even then Ireland's game was pretty decent. Like you have to plan, if you're looking out at it 4 years out or 2 years out as it is, you have to think that you're going to have perfect conditions to play that quarterfinal. You need to be able to find cheap scores. Your scores can't all be 40 phase bludgeoning affairs. Like you need to take some from intercepts, you need to take some from kick returns, you need to take one from a charge. Like
you just create offset piece.
You need to do all of this.
Get your big forwards out there in the wide channels.
They need to score different tries. It's one of the great credits of Wales that we were singing their praises. They score all kinds of tries, different kinds of looks to all their tries, because they look for them and grab them. Ireland need a bit more of that. It's a whole generation of player ago, but it's not that long ago really that Ireland were pretty pioneering in terms of they didn't have a good pack that could go toe to toe with the top big guns, so they had to be more enterprising ball in hand. We're a nation of footballers. We should be looking to be a bit more ambitious, certainly in the middle third offset piece. That's where I'm really looking for Ireland.
So many teams are striking so well.
Like too often you see Ireland with perfect clean ball, even off kick return or offset piece in the middle third, and they just set up a kick because they set up a contestable that's landing on the 22, and it's like, even if you regather that kick, starting a multi-phase for attack from just at the 22 is a worse position to attack from than the middle of the field, because there's less space.
Yeah, right now that seems to be the case. More tries are coming from deep.
Yeah, so is there any prudence to kicking the contestable when even if you win it, all you get is a worse position to attack from?
For me, that was the lesson of the French game, and one likes to think that they've learned from it a little bit and that won't be an approach. We will go in depth on the two sides, but I definitely think from an Ireland point of view, it's one of the key factors is just growth, because they got for me, the game breaking point, the sort of point of no return for this Ireland team is the summer tour of next year, where Ireland have actually organised, as it stands, obviously crazy COVID year, anything can happen, but as it stands, Ireland have organised a tour of New Zealand in 2022. And if they go to New Zealand without a developed game and try to bully them up front with your Tui Pilotus and your Cody Taylors playing so well, like that this All Black pack is going to be as big as any, they're going to find themselves impotent and then outclassed in the back line. The quality of the play from the Kiwi players at the moment is tremendous. And if they go to New Zealand and get outclassed for 3 games, you might end up having to stick a fork in them as a World Cup contender, or as a team that can actually go and do something, because they'll be broken then.
Indeed.
So I think long term, I think everything is, for the time being, it's like it's a medium term goal.
Yeah.
In terms of like, for the World Cup, it's vital that they go to New Zealand and not win, obviously, but like, you're not going to go and win a series in New Zealand unless you're playing otherworldly rugby, but compete and be competitive and have things to build on from that tour.
Don't be blown away.
And not be blown away. And I think they're on track to be blown away right now, and I'm looking for signs that they're going to build on things and improve on that, and maybe even the odds a little bit ahead of that tour. And I think every game in my head from here on out is a little bit about that.
Yeah, and it should be. Yeah, no, it's not just for. It's a curious place for Farrell to be, where you're like, my job is on the line if I don't win. The successful game plan, albeit a bit of a limited one, that is all about
just working against Scotland.
Styles make matchups, and it seems to break this Scottish team. So there may be scope.
Yeah, they'll probably go back to it.
They will.
It's a big game for a lot of the players on the pitch as well. There's huge Lions potential for it as well.
Indeed, huge stakes for that. A lot of people sides. Still in contention, and the Lions is just up for grabs. It's a very open competition, and all players will have a kind of half a mind on it. Just, you want to perform well. But yeah, speaking of those players, I suppose we will pivot on to the squads themselves. Absolutely, and some of those guys who are looking for Lions honours at the end of the season. We have in Scotland, we have Gregor Townsend. He's brought in a few fresh faces into the squad for the upcoming fixture. Nick Haining, Rufus McLean and Sam Skinner. They've all been called in to join the now 34-man group ahead of Sunday's meeting in Edinburgh. So yeah, there are a few kind of strong
Nick Haining comes in for Gary Graham and might come onto the bench.
Gary Graham, unfortunate to miss out, because he's been brilliant.
I mean, I had one or two issues with one of his performances, but he's been fine.
He's been very physical.
I think Haining hasn't probably had a fair cut at the jersey. He's had one or two appearances and he's looked good.
Yeah.
So I'm actually fine with this selection, and I wouldn't mind seeing him straight in on the bench.
And Sam Skinner was another you were calling for pre-tour. He's a good player.
Versatility at lock is not a bad thing, although Johnny Gray's form is great, and he seems to have a good relationship with Cummings in there, who's been nice and physical as well as competition. So I don't see the starting team changing much.
No.
They're pretty settled. I think you're looking at, Sutherland, Turner and Nell will come in at tight head. Cummings and Gray, Ritchie, Watson and Fagerson, no one unseating them more than likely. And then you're looking at Price and Russell, and then you have question marks. The centres is interesting, isn't it? Like, we saw Sam Johnson and Hugh Jones to put on like a really good showing against Leinster in the Pro 14 a couple of weeks back.
They looked very gelled, and they could just chuck both of them in to try and attack them. But
the incumbents are James Lang and Chris Harris, and apart from the Louis Rees-Sammet try, really, Chris Harris didn't put too many feet wrong from a defensive point of view.
No, he didn't.
So throwing Hugh Jones in there is potentially dangerous from that point of view, although I don't know how much threat Ireland have in that midfield.
Well, apart from that, the last game, I remember Scotland fielding Hugh Jones against this Ireland team, and actually Ringrose had one of his better showings in a green jersey. Absolutely kind of ragdolled him a little, because Ringrose is kind of a similar offensively instincted player to Hugh Jones, but a bit more physical, and that matchup didn't go well for Hugh the last time, so maybe a bit more balanced. I expect they'll probably stick with the incumbents. I think those two Glasgow guys are a little bit in the back of the picture, although, as we were saying, Sam Johnson is potentially probably their best centre.
Yeah, well, Lang has been he hasn't broken anything. That's kind of the instinct. It's a difficult one. No, he's not out there making plays for days.
No, but they're a bit more robust. They're a bit more solid compared to the exciting thing about having Hugh Jones in there is that there's the potential for that great try that he's got against England, and I agree, he's a very nice attacking player, but there's just no arguing that the centres are just porous when he's in there. He's not a 13 in the traditional sense.
It's been a while since he's got a chance, though, and he has been in good form.
Yeah, no, it's true. He has been in good form. There's definitely scope for mixing it up. It's just been very unsettled when you go back to the opening game and the great showing of Redpath, and then he's out, and it's like, it's a very unsettled picture in the midfield in Scotland.
There's winning pictures for them with whatever combination they go for, but it's definitely a question mark going into this. My suspicion would be that they'll just go with Lang and Harris and keep it as it has been,
and try and make it not about that. They're trying to make the link between Hogg and Russell is the conduit for good play, because their danger men are Graham and Van der Merwe on the wings, who will not be going anywhere.
Well, unless Maitland comes in. Maitland was great in that
game. He was great in the opening game. Yeah, no, he was, absolutely, and that would have been at the expense of Darcy Graham. Although Darcy Graham's dangerous as well. It's a tough one. They have danger. They have a lot of
good options on the wings.
They do.
And they'll probably have Cherry covering hooker, Keble, who's been awesome form-wise for Glasgow. I really like Keble coming on as an explosive loose head for Sutherland. Simon Bergen, really solid tight head. Great to have him in as third choice when your first choice decides to lose the plot.
Yes.
He's now in. I'm sure he's delighted because for Simon Bergen's going to be back up tight head. He's going to have a chance to play some rugby, and he probably is super frustrated because he doesn't do much wrong and he's just behind Xander and Nell, and now he gets a chance to come in and influence the team, so I reckon he could have a big game.
Well, we know from all of those front rows will be involved at some point because it'll be a very attritional battle.
And then obviously we don't have the team named as it is, so we're kind of just going off what we assume. There could be one or two glitches here and there where they've gone with someone else, but they'll probably have one of Skinner, Craig or Gilchrist covering lock, probably Skinner in my book, and then one of Cornell Dupree, Nick Haining or Rob Harley covering back row. And for me that's Haining or Cornell Dupree. I don't really know about Rob Harley at this level, especially against this marauding Irish pack. I just would not throw him in there.
Probably not.
And then they've got Scott Steele covering halfback, Jaco van der Waal covering 10.
Who's looked good in some of his recent showings for Edinburgh as well.
Hugh Jones or one of Maitland Graham, I guess, covering the backs.
Jones, Graham, all of those are an option. Good impact, to be honest, for Scotland. A pretty balanced side.
And in good condition as well. But by and large, no injury crisis.
Yes,
their key players are still there. Obviously, the hooker position notwithstanding, but Turner's just made that not a problem.
Brilliant. They're not even factoring that in. Like the performances you might have got from
Would you even
Brown
pick Fraser Brown over Turner right now?
No, this tournament's Turner has been an absolutely brilliant hooker, and I
think for the better.
He'd be tough to dislodge him. And then for Ireland as well, there are some decisions to make. They really do. There's a settled side there that are losing these tight games, or there are definitely good assets in the squad itself. You're looking at the guys like Conan, Ruddock, both looking good form. Ruddock had a brilliant showing last time he was in and was rewarded by being dropped the next time.
Yeah, it's a curiosity, isn't it?
There's definitely, he's been brilliant all season long. Gibson Park at 9, or do you go with Murray, or do you go with potentially with
no way would they go with the young man Casey.
I don't know, but he was very impressive. But these are good headaches to have. Larmour and Lowe are the current incumbents on the wing. I would probably stick with them, although Stockdale has been brought into the squad after looking pretty dangerous in the game against Leinster.
I think I'd go Stockdale-Larmour
maybe, just on the grounds that tries,
totally.
Guys who grab tries.
Quick guys who will grab tries. Larmour's form has been spotty, but I still think he's lethal if put in space, and I think it's on us to put him in space a little more.
It's also on us to put him in jersey because he needs it.
Needs a bit of time in there as well. He's a potentially lethal operator. The only thing that we know for sure in the Ireland selection is that Sexton will be at 10, Henshaw will be at 12, and Ringrose will be at 13. That midfield is set in stone and nailed to the wall forever.
Seems to be.
They're all highly rated and they're all good players, and it just doesn't work. But anyway,
indeed, that's true. And then another kind of factor at that is that CJ will probably be at 8, which is another playmaking, distributing role in the modern game that is occupied
they have
by
decisions
a number
to
6.
make in the pack. Like they do. Like Kilcoyne versus Healy at Loosehead is a decision. Herring versus Kelleher is a decision. Eileen, Kilcoyne and Kelleher. Personally, I think just go
20 minutes of Keane rather than the full 50.
I think that's right. And I think you have to start Tadhg Furlong. I just don't think there's an argument with Murray Sutherland up the other end. I just don't think you can play Porter. I like Porter, but Murray Sutherland...
Porter's a very useful man to have in his squad. He can play both sides. He's very physical.
Murray Sutherland's a scary Loosehead scrummager.
It'll get us back to that. That was the dynamic before Tadhg was injured, and it was a great dynamic because Porter was normally good for a few turnover steals off the bench. He's a very dynamic guy to bring in at 60 minutes. So I wouldn't hate to see that. And there's all kinds of decisions at lock because the incumbents are Ryan and Henderson, and they stay, I'm sure.
And Tadhg Byrne plays in the back row.
There's Tadhg Byrne, he should be in the back row. If he's playing in the back row at all, he should be at number 8. He's not a physical number 6.
He can work at 6 as just a playmaking and distributing. I just think his playmaking's been undeniable, and apart from 1 or 2 penalties, I just think he's earned the right to start. So he plays for me no matter what, and if he plays, he's more of a back row forward than a second rower at test level for me. He doesn't have the heft for second row. So I think that's set in stone.
No, I agree.
Will
I just
Connors
think he should be in the number 8 jersey, and CJ should have the number 6 jersey.
If they're going to do that,
CJ's a number 6, out and out.
They could end up going with Ruddock or Conan either. And
that's true. And then there's Van der Fleer or Connors, both of them very similar operators.
It'll be Connors.
And whoever's not there will likely be on the bench as well to just come in and do that. I think
Josh is doing return to play protocols
for the weekend, so it'll likely be Connors. And then on the bench you have other guys. Obviously Ryan Baird was making headlines during the week with his crazy stats. He is the fastest
fastest forward. I think in terms of like 40-meter sprints, he was clocking speeds. I think I read somewhere that it was almost as fast or more fast than any winger at the World Cup, which is insane.
Good, which we know as Leinster fans, we saw him burst on the scene. He scored a great try against Glasgow where he broke the line at the halfway line and stepped a guy and ran in.
I'd be fuming now if Ryan Baird doesn't get on the squad. I'd be fuming. He's all kinds of talent, and I think he needs to be kind of fast tracked.
It was one of the main positives I had from the Italy game was no injuries, and Baird and Casey both have one cap to their name, which is positive.
Linked quite well with one another as well.
We'd like to see more.
So there's options galore for Ireland in the tight five and in the back row. The scrum half is the other big question mark for me, is whether they go with Murray or Gibson Park. Gibson Park has given them decent tempo, if nothing else. Murray obviously gives them that kicking game and that sort of slow rhythmic play. At his very best, he provides a great running threat, although we haven't seen that in a while.
In quite a few years,
So it's hard to know whether they go back to Murray or Gibson Park. I feel like those are 9 and backup 9, though I would be surprised to see Casey involved. As much as I like Casey,
it's unfortunate because I think he might be the future, but the present is definitely. I would rather of those two see Gibson Park undoubtedly, because halfbacks set the tempo and we need to be quick. That's my single sentence argument is just halfbacks set the tempo, guys. They don't just kick. That's not what they're for.
No, I don't disagree at all. And Hugo Keenan will be the fullback there for Ireland. So barring one or two decisions, it's a pretty settled side.
It is,
and even with the various personnel changes that could come in, they're all comparable enough in terms of skill level and ability. Obviously, if Furlong picks up an injury or something like that, or if Sexton picks up an injury, it changes the dynamic completely.
It does, yeah.
But outside of those guys, it's pretty much a horses for courses. They all can play, but will they?
Indeed.
Anyway, we're going to take a look now in depth at both sides, just looking to preview their conditions for winning the game, and we're going to start with Scotland.
Yes,
the hosts
as they are,
the team in contention, I guess.
They are. They're still have a lot to play for in this tournament. As we were saying at the top of this, it's just so important for them to get this monkey off their backs in terms of the Irish consistently putting them to the sword when it comes down to it in these clutch moments. And this is where one of the biggest work-ons is just clinicality in important moments, and clutch, I guess, is what you call it, because it's a lot of times some of their losses to Ireland, you can accuse them of bottling some of these big moments.
Not just Ireland, the one against Wales. Wales are an excellent team, and anyone who says otherwise is sorely mistaken. And Scotland were playing
really good,
better rugby,
and
they were owning the physicality, they were owning the territory game. And then
the first quarter of that game was also
in a couple of crucial drives, they gave Wales entry back into the game, and it was pre-half time and post-half time. Pre-half time, they gave away a penalty. Granted, it was a good play from Wales. They got the steal. They compounded that mistake by giving away another couple of penalties, which led to a Welsh try, which got them back in. Then at the start of the second half, they had a great drive where they went off the top of the line out to Lang, who does a really good play, picks a hard line. They go around the corner for a few phases, and they look sure for all money to score a try, and then butcher it over the line badly, and end up really paying for not taking that score. And while the tools in terms of their rugby, their capacity to create great offensive plays, to cut through the line, to make things happen, to bully teams up front, to win the kicking game, all the elements of a rugby team, it can all go away if you don't execute in the big moments. You look at what separates the best teams, the great All Black teams, the Crusaders team that dominates at the moment. Just that capacity to be ruthless in the right moments is what Scotland lacked. It was the difference between winning or losing. Almost more than Xander Fagerson's red for me was just letting Wales back into the game when you had them beaten.
Yeah, no, we know it from even our Leinster fan duties, when in the years that Leinster are the best team in Europe, which has happened on a few occasions, they have a real clinical edge and they have a knack for scoring just before half-time, a try, and then just after half-time as well.
Those are the big moments.
And the winning teams, they recognise that, and the losing teams conversely have a nasty habit of conceding in those moments.
And the last time these two met in the Autumn Nations Cup, it was the same story. Scotland started well, didn't quite manage to put tries on the board, but did put 3-pointers on the board. Were 6-0 up, and then in and around half time cheaply gave up a couple of red zone attacks to Ireland, and then Ireland go over the line and score with good clinical red zone offense. And that is the picture that Scotland have to beat away from themselves. Those big moments, more than anything else,
they need to dial it in. Like if they can score pre-half time, then I'd make them probably fail. Like if they can literally, it's a piece by piece thing, but getting rid of this Ireland monk kind of hoodoo involves probably flipping that script on them, being the team to score in those key moments. That's how it has to go.
They should, on paper and based on all the teams they play, all the games they play against other teams, they're the more clinical side, and yet they haven't been against Ireland. And part of that is actually on the defensive side of the ball. Ireland have dominated them in the red zone with tight carries. You know, you look at Tadhg Furlong and James Ryan, and they never have bigger games than when they're matched up against these Scots, just barreling them, winning contacts, going around the corner. And it very often isn't at a frenetic Gibson Park tempo, it's at a slow Murray tempo, but they're just winning contacts, getting over the line. They find it very, very easy to cross the line against Scotland once they set up stall in their 22 with raw physicality. Now, if there's one big improvement that Scotland have made in the last year more than any other, it is their tight five physicality. This is the huge test to show that. They're just not allowing Ireland to score cheap tries. I mean, every defence has had a field day against us. Like, it's been, Sean Edwards is going to put it on his CV because it was like, granted his CV is stacked, but John Mitchell, same thing. Give Ireland all the ball and make all the tackles and defend them. Same thing for Wales. And now it's this Steve Tandy defence. Like, every other team is loving defending this Ireland team. Why are Scotland struggling with it so much? It's because they're not standing up physically. If they can stand up physically and stop Ireland and repel them, that could paint a very different picture.
Sadly, that's the simple equation to unstick this Ireland team. As an Ireland fan, it's sad to say, but that is literally what you do. Make your first up tackles in the tight, like the few.
You want Johnny Gray to have a big game.
The few bodies are piled around the breakdown. If the four men out from pillar to post there. If those guys just meet them on the gain line and occasionally drive them, if you drive them back 1 in 3 phases or 1 in 4 phases, that is enough to unstick this Irish offense in the multi-phase. It's a sad indictment of Ireland, but it's a true thing if you're kind of galvanised as a defensive coach, and it's true. Scotland just haven't done that yet. They haven't dealt with us.
No, it would be a totally different picture, a potentially game-changing picture for them to be backs against the wall in the red zone defending Ireland and to knock them back, and then for someone like Ritchie or Watson to come up with a big steal and then to repel Ireland and make Ireland, expose Ireland as lacking in clinicality as opposed to the other way around. That's how you flip the script on them. If they can do that, they'll be so buoyed by it. But for me, it's as pivotal as any other point. Although their offense is brilliant and does match up well against this Irish defence if they can finish tries.
Well, you saw with the way France scored against them off set piece in terms of just go one way through 2 phases and then flash it back the other side. With guys like Finn Russell and Hogg who run these great lines and things, like there's potential for them to score that carbon copies of that exact try over and over again.
Crisp passing, find the wide channels, move this Ireland team around, keep it quick. And Ireland do tend to get sluggish. They tend to not like defending the whole field, and they're slow on the turn. They're slow when they get caught, numbered up on, especially if it's chaos ball. They can't set on a ruck. They can be caught and they can be exposed. And like you look at even Johnny May's world beater over try in Twickenham, just getting to the extremities and finding matchups and taking off. That's what it's all about. France have done it and England have done it. And Scotland like to play that way. They like to work the extremities of the field. They like to get Doohan on the ball. They like to get Hogg on the ball, testing out that 13 channel. That's where the space is.
They should be doing that. You should be overloading ring rows in the 13 channel with some good options and some good crisp passing, as you say. And then just the other thing is that their back three in space is just, that's what the picture should look like if Scotland are winning. It's guys like Hogg pulling the strings, linking well with his outside men, whoever they are, but they will be dangerous to a man regardless of who they pick. And there are other nitty gritty kind of aspects to performance that they like tactical elements, like just the kicking game. They shouldn't necessarily be kicking contestables because I don't think they match up particularly well.
They've been kicking really well. Finn Russell and Hogg have been sharing the responsibilities, and Hogg's kicking from hand has been exceptional.
Brilliant. They should be finding grass because this, as you say, we're a bit slow on the turn. We
don't
necessarily have a young guy at fullback.
Outside of James Lowe, Ireland's exit game hasn't been great, and if you can target the likes of whoever they go for on the right wing, whether it's Earls or Larmour, both have had dodgy moments. Like Earls had a couple of catastrophic ones, bad kicks and drops, and Larmour likewise this season. If you can attack that right wing position, get it in behind them, even if Hugo Keenan can mop up the ball, he has like an average boot as opposed to an exceptional one. Lowe's the exceptional boot. If he's out there, it's a bit of a game changer as far as deep kicks. But if they can probe in behind and force Ireland to exit, Ireland tend not to exit with any great depth, and then they can set up those great set pieces from which they scored against Wales, some great tries, and it was very simple stuff. It was Finn Russell finding a wide pass to Hogg and then one-on-one matchups, and he makes a try happen.
And they can quickly go to the other side. That'll be enough to unstick Ireland off set pieces. Is 2 or 3 quick phases using the full width of the pitch, and normally there's a try for a winger on either corner if you can do that. The other little tidbits in terms of set piece, it's all box office. The scrum, where like going into the Autumn Nations Cup game, you were thinking, geez, Scotland are probably gonna try and fancy attacking this Irish scrum. There was no Porter, there was no Furlong in the picture. Porter was struggling. We were struggling for loose heads as well. Now it's been, ever since Paul O'Connell has joined the ticket, it's been a complete renaissance for Ireland in that set piece. They've been very dynamic. They were bullying France. This is a proper matchup between two really elite scrummages.
Furlong against Sutherland is worth the price of admission for me. That's just
awesome.
Really great. And Sutherland likes to explode. He likes to scrummage really aggressively. Furlong is a block up there, and he's dynamic as well. So if he can get an edge on you, he can make a very
potential for both
picture.
of them to get dominant at certain points. And then likewise the line out, they're both actually statistically top of the line out stats in terms of the competition so far. Scotland have won 24 of their 26 line outs, and Ireland have won 29 of 32. And then couple that with both of them, that like Scotland will want to keep that conversion rate very much up there, because Ireland have been contesting lineouts as well. Ireland have pilfered, I think, 4 in the first game and 3 in the second. In terms of just against top teams, they were nicking lineouts, and they have Ty Byrne in there doing exactly that. They make a nuisance of themselves. They'll need to be mindful of that. Scotland will need to mind the pill in the contact in the set piece. Probably just go off the top, because your mission is going to be trying to move the Ireland guys around.
Move the Ireland, find the space, work the space, cut the line. I mean, Finn Russell, there's no better reader of a defence than him, is there?
Very few.
As far as first receiver. I mean,
he's got where the space is and how to find it.
He's got the wide passes in him. He's also got the show and go in him. He's got the offloads, the little chips. He works the space. He always attacks where the space is, and I'm totally confident that they will have moments in this game where they'll break through the Irish line. I don't think the Irish defence is any great shakes. They'll make line breaks and they'll have opportunities. It's about taking it. Like, you look at that great Darcy Graham try against Wales, where they cut the line really well with Russell breaking through with a little show and go and then a link to Gray, and they cut the line. And then what was so great about that was that in the ensuing play, Ali Price put an audacious little chip in behind for Darcy Graham, because that's where the space was, and they found the score. And that is the key, I think, for them. There's 2 big things for them going into this game: is match up in the tight 5, don't get bullied in the tight 5, don't let Ireland get on top of you in the scrum, hold your own in the line out as well, and don't let them get on top of you in the carry. Win those collisions, make them move the ball. And then the other one is be clinical. Finish the chances you create. And if they can do both of those things, I think they win this game.
Well, the first up is exactly that. Once they match up physically and force Ireland to move the ball, then it becomes a bit more of a shootout, a game of which offence is going to unpick the other. And
who's going to play the smarter, better rugby.
Odds are Scotland have more tools to do that. The risk for them in terms of their ball in hand, though, is being impatient and then reckless, because Ireland, being the possession team they are, they only love when you just chip a ball to them, and so that they can kick it back deeply. And we've seen that a few times from an impatient Scotland side forcing it, where like you think that like there's an option to just hit this up and fold around and go again, and instead we'll kind of drop a little grubber in, and now the ball's gone.
If Ireland aren't offering anything dangerous by way of riposte and they're finding it difficult to break through, obviously if you're in your own half, you're looking for territory, and with Hogg and Russell's kicking game, it's almost irresponsible to do the silly chips unless it's really there.
Indeed.
But on the other end of the scale, I don't mind them probing and trying things, provided it's not like in the key moment after you've made a line break. You need to find the right move and the right ball to find the try, because that is in historically in these games against Ireland, that is where they've let themselves down.
It's just then break the line, and then the next phase they drop it on the toe, and it's a cross kick that like nearly got there, but it didn't get there, and now it's a line out of Ireland. And
they got to turn the line breaks into tries, and if they do that, they should have too much for Ireland.
They should, on paper, if they match up, if both packs cancel each other out, as could happen, as should happen from Scotland's point of view, Scotland's backline has more tools in terms of unpicking this Irish Irish defence, I think.
And yet the history of this game is that Ireland have been more clinical simply by being physical. And that's what
simply
Scotland
by being physical, and
yeah.
also it's just that intangible of confidence that like comes from that thing we were saying, where it's a whole host of kind of memories of Glasgow defeats and Edinburgh defeats at the hands of Irish provinces, and the more recent track record against Ireland. It's a big brother thing that they really need to shake off, and it involves things like what we were saying: recognise the key moments either side of half time. Not only don't concede, but try and score yourself. They need to flip the script. They need to be the home team and try and play with their confidence and bravado, and they should have more.
If early doors Ireland can are trying to set their offensive rhythm, and Scotland can swarm on them, knock them back, force them to kick it, and Hogg can take the kick with ease and domineeringness, and then they can respond in kind with a deep kick, and early victory in the territory battle. Those are the kind of indicators you're looking for them to get on top of this game, and then obviously just convert the opportunities.
This is it. There. 100%. Anything else
no,
there? I'm thinking, that is Scotland's winning conditions, and people will be hoping that's what we see, but we will flip that, because our own winning conditions, and there are them, I'm sure we've seen it happen before, we know them very well. Ireland will be looking to revert to a slightly happier type than the normal reversion to type that happens. They know that what they've been doing has tended to beat Scotland. They feel confident enough to implement their game plan more accurately and more tempo against this Scottish team than a lot of the other top sides. It seems like when they run into an England brick wall, it feels like they feel every negative contact a little bit more than they do against Scotland. Even when they're driven back in one or two clashes against Scotland, they seem more robust in terms of going through it again, going through the process, confident they can get on top, and then confident they can bully them. And that's got to be what the story is again here. Like, what we would hope is that we see a little bit more expanse in the field, guys like Tadhg Beirne out in the wide channels, guys like Ryan Baird off the bench mixing it up in the wide channels, all of this stuff that you'd like to see. Hopefully a little bit, but I think what we will generally see is a bit more of a classic Irish performance where they're trying to outmuscle Scotland and trying to bully them.
What happens if it doesn't work, though?
That's my the
fear
question.
For Ireland.
That's where you want to see that adjustment.
Because I think Scotland are good enough to repel Ireland at this stage. Like, if you'd be disappointed in Scotland if they ended up falling to that same old Irish shtick, because everyone else has slowly and surely figured it out, and Ireland can't just be like, well, you haven't figured it out yet, so we'll show you it again. I mean, I think there's danger to that.
There is. I think like from an Irish fan point of view, I would like, it would really annoy me if they managed to put together a classic kind of bludgeon ball performance enough to see off Scotland, but they lose next week to England and Farrell trundles on in the job despite no progress being made. And it was the same story at the end of 2020, and it's been the same story ongoing. We want to see a bit more development with the ball in hand, and you'd like to see that again here. You don't want to see necessarily the exact kind of thing. You don't want to see all offense just be predicated on winning every collision, which is what we did see in the Italy game. Even though there were more variations and things like that, more shape being run, the caveat was that they just won every single contact, and you can't rely on winning every single contact.
I think one of the problems that Ireland have with trying to expand their game, which there's no doubt that they're trying to do because they're talking to the ends of the earth about doing it, is that the quality of pass from the backs is a bit wanting. And I think that they need to make a couple of adjustments, and they need to make use of their very, very impressive ball playing forwards.
Yes, of which there are 2 packs worth. That's like, in terms of what the talent we have been producing. You're looking at some of the young guns for Leinster, even in the back division, not being as slick in certainly in the games and recent things. But what they do have, even the guys who aren't making the Ireland ticket, are like loose forwards who are just coming through, 20-year-old loose forwards who are all good ball players. And all skillful handlers of a ball, and physical guys as well. And Munster are the same, and like that's why you have guys like Tadhg Beirne out there. Those guys should be your playmakers.
Tadhg Beirne is a key one, obviously without O'Mahony there, but getting him into the extremities. Like, one of the things we saw against France from Ireland was Ringrose out on the edge trying to link with the wingers, and very often what he was doing was sort of listing. He wasn't much of a threat himself because he was being watched by the defence, and he would routinely chew up space. And I just think having a back row forward in there between Ringrose and a winger, cutting a hard line,
it gives you that little arrowhead pod that you have.
Exactly. Straightening the line and forcing Ringrose, not allowing Ringrose to eat up the space, and being a nice soft option for him to either take a contact if you have a soft shoulder, or because we have faith in guys like Tadhg Beirne, he's very good at straightening and passing and fixing and giving, and a lot of Ireland's forwards are a bit like that. They have good, like James Ryan wouldn't be a good example, but Tadhg Furlong would be. Kelleher's a good running threat with a decent set of hands on him. He can throw a pass.
Kelleher or Kilcoyne as well, the same. A bit more of a dynamic runner.
Wouldn't put Kilcoyne near the back line. I think
he's a good man to have first in the pod, and he can do the pull-back pass, as can Kelleher. These, like, you need to have the forwards being the ones mixing it with the hands.
And moving a few of them into those centre channels to sort of counteract the unslick passing of Henshaw and Ringrose in there.
Well, there is a dream in Ireland that is the distributing force of Gary Ringrose, and it's a little bit of a dream because he's a better runner than he is a passer. He's always been a more dangerous strike runner than a passer of a ball. And it's only by necessity, because they've downright refused for many, many years, be it because Rob Kearney was awesome and rock solid at the back, but just the refusal to get more than 2 playmakers in the back line. And then you couple that with CJ at number 8, which is another playmaking, distributing role in the modern game, and you're not doing yourself the best chance of getting your strike runners on the ball in dangerous things. And that's why you can see, as you point out, Henshaw and Ringrose and Sexton can all play what look like pretty solid games. They both carry pretty well, play really good, with good heart and good gusto, and you can't fault the effort. And yet what ends up happening is that they don't unpick any defence at all. Like, nothing works. It doesn't
apart from like maybe the occasional chaos play with one or other of Henshaw and Ringrose running back to the breakdown and somehow busting through, as Henshaw did for one of the few tries Ireland have scored against Wales. But it's not enough, and it's not sustainable. But I think with a few adjustments, they made some of them against Italy, and it'd be nice to see them there. With Hugo Keenan picking straight lines, line picking out there is crucial. Like, too often, it's been the guy on the ball hustling to the nth degree.
Certainly waiting to get the ball before you start hustling is just no good thing at all, because you let the ball do the work in all ball sports, and you hit the line hard. Gibson Park is great for flicking passes in front of guys to hit, and that's why, like, at Ireland at their very best under Joe Schmidt, weren't an expansive team, but they were a direct one, and like, they were playing a lot off nine, and it was like 3 forward pod, or a pod of 3 or even 4 forwards and a centre outside of them, all hitting a direct hard line, and Murray picking one. And like, as simple and rudimentary an offence as that is, it's much more effective,
especially when those forwards are all ball players and they can link with one another. And that's where you want your Furlongs and your Kelleher's in the tight as well. But also Connors and Tadhg Byrne out there in the extremities will allow Ireland to maybe play with a bit more
expanse, a bit more of the field.
Yeah, exactly. And I just think it would be an immeasurable slight improvement to get those guys out there, because Ringrose is much more adept at picking lines, and I actually think Tadhg Byrne would be a better distributing option in the wide channels and in and around the tram lines to link up with either Ringrose or a winger than just about anyone in the back line not named Johnny Sexton.
No, indeed. Well, we've seen the rather depressing picture of having the little, like, kind of half-back pass to Sexton, pulls back to, it can be Henshaw, it's sometimes been Bundy Aki, and he's in the channel to throw the 15-metre, 20-metre pass off the left hand that needs to go into the space, and it's very often a clunky pass. And I think genuinely,
or still sometimes, like, I'm seeing a lot of from Ireland this year, is guys getting in that position and just not throwing it,
just switch play
doing
instead.
Either like a bad kick, or just like running back towards the ruck and just not backing themselves to throw it. And while I don't think Tadhg Byrne solves that problem, I definitely think he's a better, crisper passer out there, and that would be one. It would be a similar kind of offense that they have at the moment, which is largely unstructured but does try to move the ball. It would be immeasurably more effective to have a big loose forward out there with Ringrose helping him out and linking up with him.
I think just a little simple pods. What they need is a little bit of shape, because they're not going to play an unstructured game and be that penetrative. But if they are playing given license to play within little pod structures, if you can have little dynamics where there are duos. You saw a little bit of it towards the tail end of last year with Peter O'Mahony in the wide channels linking up. There's definitely scope to do something similar, but just little arrowhead pods with a screen option behind. Very rudimentary, but more effective. It sits down defences and gives you more of the field to attack.
One of the things that the Ireland 2018 Grand Slam winning team had that made their offence more sharp was a telepathy between James Ryan and Dan Levy. Where the two of them, as forwards, big physical ball carriers, had a bit of an understanding from their play, went to school together obviously, and they were flicking the ball between each other and finding the right man, picking lines off one another. having forwards doing that kind of interplay, especially when you have a pack as potentially domineering as this Irish pack can be.
Well, the showing they put up against France would encourage you. It's the biggest asset at the moment.
Just link up a bit more. Yeah. Link up a bit more and then you can penetrate. Yeah. And that makes it so much easier on the backs.
Yeah, indeed. And avoiding some rucks would be nice. Little pops out of the ruck. You don't need to ruck every time. There's a little hangover of the 40 phase monster that was the Ireland team of a few years ago. I keep saying it, but the notion that a ruck is safer than a pass is wrong. Yeah. It's just not the way rugby is.
Especially with Jamie Ritchie and Hamish Watson lingering out there.
There's a bunch of wily Scots going to make a mess of your breakdown ball. Yeah. So keep it alive. That's how you break down structured defences with a bit of unstructured running and
if they can get some go forward ball, Sexton can find the right passes and the right extremities.
Yeah, sure, we saw that.
Sexton can get this backline pulsing better than any of the other 10s, and it's definitely better to have him in there.
I agree.
From an Irish point of view, and they just want to punish the Scottish errors, be clinical in the red zone, and while they could do it with that old bruising picture, they might have to expand their game a little bit to do that, but they should be able to be clinical in the red zone and punish the Scots on the offensive side of the ball. That would be very much their picture.
You would think so. That being said, there will be realistic things. There will be kicking. Obviously, it's an Ireland team. You're not going to get through.
I'm just talking about attacking when you're in that half. That's sort of
indeed. But attacking, the difference between attacking kicks, it kind of goes to what we were saying about England with their kicks against France. Doing it on your terms is so vital, because loose kicks and pointless kicks, or perfectly good clean ball in the middle third, but we have no ideas, so we're just going to kick it to you and create maybe a 50-50. That's a terrible plan, and Scotland have the tools in the back three to punish it. Whereas proactive and dangerous kicks that find grass and manage to turn Hogg and turn the back three, that can break Scotland. We've seen it before.
Hogg still, he hasn't had to face it many times this season. He has had a renaissance, but still, I think his least favourite picture in the game is the chaos ball in behind him.
It's a nightmare scenario for any fullback. It's very tough to do on the turn when you don't know what's coming behind you. They will kick a fair bit. Obviously, you have to. It could be a wet weather game. There will be a lot of territory, but just doing it on their terms and doing it with a purpose. It's about the why and the how and why are we kicking? It can't just be the only attacking idea. I would love to see a little bit more just verve and attacking impetus in the middle third is really what I would like to see grown, because what we saw in the first two games, particularly the French game, actually was you saw winning clean ball. They turned over a ball in that French game at a line out at about the halfway or just inside the French half, and they had numbers out wide, and the instant thing they did was kicked it in the air, because it's the offense doesn't begin before we get to the end of the 22 and then we smash, and all teams are recognising, as we were saying, the place to attack right now is from the middle third. It's getting good clean set piece ball, and better yet turnover ball, and they're turning over line outs. You've got to be dialed into switching on and flashing that wide and trying to attack. Get your dangerous runners like Henshaw and Ringrose to try and test that guy.
And here's hoping Sexton can be the guy to direct that offense and play a little bit, but Billy Burns was kind of playing scared in the opening of that game.
Yes, he was.
And getting Sexton in, the more assured, experienced head,
you'd understanding
the value of turnover ball and set piece ball is falls within his remit.
It does, but it kind of marries with the old kick on your terms and kick with a plan, as opposed to just kicking for chaos, which they do a lot of. They might do a bit of in this instance, but it can't be your only plan.
We talk about opportunities for territory and opportunities to score tries. From Ireland's point of view, their pack is without question a stronger weapon than their backline, and part of that really starts with the set piece. Scotland have the statistical best line out in the competition,
and a mighty scrum.
Arguably the best scrum in the competition, although Xander in his pre-red card showings was padding the stats a little by slipping once or twice and giving away penalties.
He lost a penalty on the first engage on the first two games he did that.
So maybe with Nell in there, there's scope for it to be even more ferocious, but from an Ireland point of view, they have no reason to fear Scotland in this area, and they should be looking to attack in this area because if they can get an edge up front in the scrum, if Cian Healy
the battle's halfway to being won, because as we said, with the confidence, if they can get on top in a few key areas and win a few early exchanges like that, they should be able to exert that pressure enough such that the Scots will be the ones to fold, because historically that's what all evidence has shown.
They have a really, really tough tight five, Ireland. It matches up to most teams in World Rugby, one or two, like the Safas would probably say, we're better, and they're right.
And the English have bullied them the last few times.
The English have bullied them, but like at their very best, Healy and be it, I feel like it'll be Kelleher, but it could be Herring. But even with Herring in there, it's very physical, and Tadhg Furlong, obviously, James Ryan, obviously, Ian Henderson, big Ian Henderson's all class as well.
Even
but if they can get
Porter off the bench is a mighty unit to come in.
If they can get like a power running game going, a power tackling game going, and win the scrum battle, and even get some line out mauls, I think, because you talk about avenues for Ireland to score tries. That's one where they haven't been scoring tries. They actively tried against Italy to score one.
Finally got one in the 64th minute.
Yeah, gave away a couple of crossing penalties, which did seem harsh. And then did finally cross the chalk with the maul try.
Yeah.
That feels important.
The rumblings from Paul O'Connell, and actually just the renaissance that has been the Irish set piece, and just the intent in their set piece since he's been in the job.
Yeah.
It's been the story of the tournament, despite losing the opening two games. For Ireland, it's just been great, because not since we lost Paul O'Connell in that World Cup have we been the absolute line-out aficionados that we were when he was in the team. He was there and he just made us very, very elite. The matchups between him and Alan Wynne-Jones or Matfield in years gone by were absolutely top quality, and we always got a few shots off, whereas in the last few seasons with Henderson, Ryan, and even going to that World Cup, we felt suddenly this is a weakness for us, and whereas it had just been a go-to strength and a key fulcrum in the game. And even going back to the years of Brian O'Driscoll and Razzle Dazzle Rugby, like that came from a really solid line-out platform. The scrum was a bit dodgy, our front row wasn't great, but the line-out maul was always a key part of that team.
Ireland needs a good maul, and putting it together against Scotland would be, as you say, halfway or even more than on the way to winning that game. Winning the tight 5 battle will win the game for Ireland.
Indeed. And then a few minor jobs. Big job for Ringrose out in 13. You have Finn Russell opposite you.
Yeah.
You're going to have to make some reads, you're going to have to make some shoots, and you're going to have to make some plays out there.
He's made many 13s look very silly, finding the wide channels. Finn Russell's a guy who, he hasn't gone off yet in this competition. He could be about to.
Yeah,
Ireland have to be live to that task and that challenge, because defensively they are a handful to manage.
I think it will be Connors who sets the line speed by pressuring Finn Russell. That'll be his job, his remit. They know, be it Van der Fleer or him, they're similar mould of kind of Duracell bunny back row forwards who just run and run all day, and it is normally their remit to pressure the 10. So that'll be job one, is pressure him, but you know that he can flick that pass under pressure, and he can find the extremities. So the link between Connors and Ringrose on the outside, a solid wall, all in cohesion, and really Ringrose making good reads is going to be the difference. I
also think Ireland, they can be too narrow at times. They're too often getting caught off set piece. They're being caught narrow, like following it round to one touchline. We've talked about this, and not covering the far touchline. As a unit, they need to hold their width way better. And then Scotland are going to try and test them on the extremities and the outside. Ireland need to force Scotland infield. They need to force Scotland to play on the inside lines and operate in those narrow, dirty, physical channels, and earn the right to go wide and make it a forward battle first and foremost. At the moment they're just too narrow in defence.
They are,
and they're giving teams chances, easy chances. Like Penot's try was a farce, really. In your own red zone, no team has given up that try, where France go one way and Ireland fly up and then just catch the ball. Oh, we'll just go this way now, and nobody on the far side had shot up. And then all of a sudden it was just easy space. Winger flies up, misses tackle.
That'll be a try all day for this Scottish back three. It'll be like if that picture is presented, that's curtains for Ireland almost. Whereas if you're forcing Stewie to kind of list to the side and then do a switch play with either Van der Merwe or someone, that's a much better picture. Because then he's running into Henshaw or someone.
Hold your width and stop deliberately isolating your dodgy wingers. Irish defence is set up like I think it's Easterby who's in charge of the defence. I'd have to double check that, but it's a mess. I don't know why they're playing so narrow, but it's bad. They need to play hold your width and force Scotland to try and punch holes in the inside where you can counterpunch. Like you want your Tadhg Burns involved in a defence making those big plays, especially when Scotland can occasionally be like naive in terms of the way they carry. Sometimes they're like trying to get every inch out of it, and they fall on the wrong side.
That's
and Ireland
true.
have good poach men in Tadhg Byrne, in Porter,
in Kelleher,
and catching the Scots off guard, especially after they make a line breaker, they make a near line breaker.
It's a good recipe to stymie their momentum. Yeah, no, indeed, being the more technical, if not the more ferocious.
And it all comes from forcing them to operate in the inside channels, forcing them to try and punch holes, and that's where you can pick them off.
So a narrow bludgeoning affair that Ireland win, or an expansive, sexy razzle-dazzle game that Scotland might win. Which do you think's going to happen?
I don't know.
As ever with Ireland, it's tough to be optimistic, but we're going to try. I'm going to try anyway.
I think pre-tournament in our little pool of results, our little betting forecast of which way the games go. By the way, which we're all doing dreadful. Nobody saw the Welsh Grand Slam coming, and here it is anyway. Knocking at the door. I did call Scotland to win this game. I thought Scotland would have a better tournament, and I didn't think Ireland would have a good tournament.
You're half right.
Well, Scotland have had a better tournament so far. It's a tough one. I think on paper Scotland have the better team, but I can't ignore the history of these games and how they've gone. I also think Ireland do have a big forward-oriented performance in them. And I don't know what kind of mindset I'm in with Scotland. I tend to just be negative on Ireland, and I know you're going to call Ireland to win.
Yeah, because I think it's my routine.
Yeah, I think for colour's sake, I kind of have to go with Scotland. And the way I see it happening, one intangible that I like about Scotland is that we haven't heard from them in a while.
Yes.
I love that.
I
think they're always much better when you're just...
That's true.
They're focused on their work.
As opposed to when they're coming out with kind of, we're here to win the World Cup.
Yeah, that
chat,
stuff. And just popping out and giving it all sorts of talk. We haven't heard from them, and that can be scary. So...
They surely are targeting.
I think they have to. I think they know they have to win, and I think they will.
It would salvage there. So if they can exercise the Twickenham demons and the Ireland demons, and then even if they don't win the tournament, it'll be a successful season.
There's a part of me as well that's like, if Ireland win it ugly, it's probably no good to them, because I'm still thinking long term, like they need to expand their game.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe that'll happen. maybe it'll be something negative.
Something negative comes out of it. Ireland win, but win ugly.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Scotland will do it. I kind of feel like Ireland might, though, somehow at this stage, but for colour's sake, I'll say Scotland, right. Despite the jersey.
No, I'm going to stick with the pride, the nationalistic pride, and say that we do get it done against Scotland, as we often do. I don't know if we'll learn anything from it. I hope we see a bit more expanse, and we see a little bit more ambition with ball in hand. It'd be
such a crushing blow for the Scots if they lose this game.
I know,
it would be brutal,
devastating. But if it rains and rains, and then it becomes
and if Ireland play well, if Ireland can just turn it on.
Certainly, Ireland do have a big performance in. They perform pretty well, but 2 losses. Like, it's not something to bank on Ireland losing 4 of their Six Nations games, which would be very likely if they lose this game to Scotland, given their track record against England. I suspect Ireland win by perhaps 2 scores, but maybe 1. I think perhaps 2. I think
you think we're dominating.
No, I think more likely 1. Even a dominant performance is more likely a 1-score win.
That's interesting. Scotland, just like Johnny Gray and these guys, they're class players, and they're not going to just stop Ireland from doing they always do.
They should.
I think they will. That's what I'm going to say. I think they do. I don't think they dominate up front. I don't think they dominate in the scrum, but I think they stop Ireland in the red zone. They create a few crucial turnovers.
Hamish Watson has a game of games.
Yeah, and the difference maker is that they take their tries. This time they take their tries, and that'll be enough for them if they can do that.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, I'm going to say...
But tight, tight. And come on, Ireland, at the end of the day, is true. I want Ireland to turn it around and look good and move the ball better and get the forwards on the ball, link up and score tries and be better.
That's the goal. Just do all of that. We'll make a list.
Yeah. Be better.
But we're looking forward to that. That is the last game of the weekend in terms of the Six Nations action.
Thank you for watching the Overlap Rugby podcast. If you enjoyed that video, please be sure to like and share with your friends. And if you'd like to hear more of what we have to say, please be sure to subscribe and click that bell so you get notified when we upload our videos. And please join the comment section as well. We like to get a fun conversation going here.